I'm fine, thanks. Thanks for having me. Very nice. I'm very fine. It's Friday. It's been a good week, and I'm ready for the weekend, so to speak. Right. Well, that's kind of a tough question to answer, to be honest, because I do a lot of things, a lot of which isn't available to anyone else but the people I work with, unfortunately. But that's just how it is. In general, though, I do tutorials on YouTube, specifically tailored towards geometry nodes, which I feel is a very underexplored topic, even today, over a year since it was released. But it's kind of my pet project, so to speak. And it has been for the better part of, what is it now, 1.5 years or something. So that's mainly my focus has been tutorials and trying to uh, create something that makes jump nodes makes more sense for anyone who's just starting out, essentially. Mm. Uh, I don't want to say understand a specific part of jump nodes, but I'm pretty good at kind of trial and error and kind of experimenting my way towards something that works kind of as I intended. Right now, I'm doing well. It's kind of a freelance gig, which I'm doing as my main thing. Before that, I was doing procedural modeling at a film studio in Madrid for the better part of a year, last year, where the focus was heavily focused on jump nodes and kind of creating procedural setups for very quickly generating variations of models. Yeah, it was great fun. it's a shame. It's a shame we couldn't continue, but that was really fun to work with for sure. You could say it's something of a. It's mostly a hobby, I would say, which kind of ties into the pivot that's going on later on. Um, but essentially, I kind of started when I I saw some video by Antagma on how to use geometry nodes, like just basic instancing. And I thought, okay, this is pretty cool. So I followed along and thought, okay, this is pretty game changing, to be honest. You can do things you couldn't do before. And then I saw some of their top thumbnails, which were some things I haven't seen being done with Blender before, specifically a fractal with icospheres. And I thought, I mean, with the knowledge I have now from their previous tutorial, I should be able to do this, right? So I gave it a go and it worked. And I said, this is pretty cool. I wonder if anyone done this before, and no one had. So I said, okay, maybe this is my sign to start doing something. So I spent the week making my first tutorial
on YouTube the other day, and
which was, I would say, positively received, much more than I thought it would. And people appreciate it, and that kind of made me want to create more and explore more. So that also is kind of the reason why I was doing so much with geometry nodes at all, because I had a solid reason to hyper focus on that and nothing else. Yeah, that's the one. Hmm. I don't know if I have a good answer to that, to be honest. If we're talking geometry nodes, I would say that over time, well, one big part of it is that I haven't really had time to do, just art. I haven't really had time to be just creative. So everything I've done in the past year or so have been kind of with my YouTube channel in mind, and trying to find different setups that I can use in my work for specific things. A good example is I think I have it on ArtStation. There's this kitchen scene that I made for for Bad Normal's default cube challenge, the toaster there on the upper right. Yeah, so that was really fun, because that was, essentially an art jam where you had like a very specific set of rules to make something a short animation. And from this art piece, for example, I made two tutorials. One was to create this dusty particles floating around in air. And the other one was the procedural fog, or the procedural steam from the coffee cups. And those were things that I haven't had in mind before, that I just thought, I need this in my scene. Let's see how I can do it with geometry nodes. And it turned out to be pretty easy to do. So I made a tutorial on it. And that's kind of how it usually goes, that I try to make something, I find a problem, I'm thinking, how could I do this with geometry nodes? And if it's not too complex, or I feel like it's straightforward enough that I can make a solid tutorial on it, then I would make a tutorial on it. But it also means that I can't really spend much time focusing on just pure art, because I'm also working towards creating things that can be shared and thought pretty easily. Yeah, right. There's me. No, I like to shoot from the hip. So I'm kind of going in blind always. Just thinking about, okay, how do I do this? Like logically, how would this be constructed? And then I try to find ways from there, kind of backwards engineer it, For example, the vapor is a pretty good example, because I knew I needed essentially a plane that can wobble and get displaced in 3D space. And I also needed a texture to simulate the vapor. So those two in combination can create this kind of vapor effect. So, displacement is not very hard to do with jump nodes. It's pretty easy. And making it move upwards is also pretty easy. So the jump nodes part was pretty simple. So I started with okay, set position to set the positions. Then I create a gradient from the bottom up to kind of control how much influence the distortion should have and stuff like that. So it's kind of you deconstruct it into specific and very discrete steps and then take it from there. I think that's probably my best tip if anyone is wondering. Break it up into small parts. Like this specific part is doing one thing, this next part is doing another specific thing. And if you can keep it quantized like that, then you will have a much easier time working with it, and specifically a much easier time learning it. For sure. There's nothing worse than sitting with a 100 plus node tree and trying to make everything work all at once. You need to break it up for your own sake to get a better understanding. Even setups that you make yourself after a while can become so complex and so large that it's hard to keep track. But if you keep it quantized and bite size, it will save you a lot of headache going on. I guess that's kind of also a trial and error kind of thing. Sometimes you can divide it very specifically into very small parts. Usually that's not the case. Usually I have maybe one chunk that's responsible for 2 or 3 things. But even that can help you get a better overview of the entire node tree, because sitting and watching us the entire thing can be very scary, even if you made it yourself. Yeah, same. Mm. Yeah, that's probably one of the better tools in the node tree. Being able to split it up into frames, that really helps to visualize the quantization as well. Oh yeah, there it is.
I think it's shift equals. It automatically aligns numbers. It's so useful.
I would say the fractal thing was kind of the one thing that made me. But I might as well go over it again, because I haven't been working in Blender for a long time, to be honest. I started in 2020, in May, I think, maybe April. Just doing like dailies. But once I discovered the geometry nodes, it was such an interesting system, and it was so unique and so different from everything else in Blender. So it made sense to kind of focus on that instead and try to utilize that in my workflow. Because I was kind of a big fan of modifiers, array modifiers and displacement modifiers. I thought that was really helpful when you were doing things, because it saved a lot of time. And geometry nodes is essentially like that, but on steroids. So for me, it was like, okay, this is what I'm going to work on now. And of course, having the YouTube channel, which focused almost exclusively on geometry nodes, was very helpful in helping me dig deep into the system and kind of really learning it. For sure. And that's also something that I had to learn by doing and by listening to feedback. Because if you look at my earlier tutorials, it's a lot of add this node, then add this node, and then this node. And there's not much explanation. It's just do this step by step and you will get this result. And I got a lot of comments saying that, okay, this is great and all, but I'm not learning anything, right? You're just teaching me how to do this and nothing else. So over time, I kind of try to focus more on explaining exactly what the nodes are doing in this context. And I think that helps a lot for people who are just starting out, because there are so many, unique things with geometry nodes that are kind of hard to wrap your head around with inputs, and like, why is there a set position node that works almost exactly like a translation node if you're using the offset and stuff like that. So that was kind of a really, I wouldn't say hard, but it was interesting to kind of trying to approach doing tutorials in a different way based on that feedback, and trying to write a script with this in mind, that whenever I'm adding certain types of nodes that aren't 100% self-explanatory, to add these sort of mini tutorials within a tutorial to kind of get the viewer up to speed to what or why I'm doing things, and not just this is what you do this. And that really helped, because explaining things to yourself can sometimes be the best thing you can do to learn something even better. I gotta say, the feedback on my first video was so positive that it kind of made me realize that, okay, maybe I have some sort of talent towards doing this, not something extreme or anything like that, but people said that they like the way I explain things and they like the flow of the tutorial. I was like, maybe this is something I can do, and I've always been interested in making videos, but I haven't really had anything to to make videos on or about. And I felt that jump nodes was kind of such a new thing that people weren't actually exploring as much yet. So I figured I might as well fill the void a bit and start making videos. Yeah, me too. It it really helped with a lot of things in the past 3 years or so. Right. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Usually the process is that I'm working on something completely different. I'm not working with the intention of making a video. I'm essentially working on something either personal or something for a client or whatever. And I stumble upon something that, okay, this is pretty cool and this is pretty interesting. This is something new I haven't encountered before, and I haven't seen anyone else cover this. So I kind of take this specific setup and I take it over to a new blend file and clean it up, because they're usually very messy, and you can usually shave off a couple of nodes that you don't need at the end to get it to a more compact setup. Once I have that, I make sure I understand the setup fully. So I go through it and I experiment with it. I try out different values, see where it breaks. And once I feel I have a good understanding of how the setup actually works, I make a script. And the script usually goes where I take it step by step from how it's built from the left to right usually. So I usually go from left to right and kind of, okay, this is this, and then I add this, and then this part is done. So I kind of, even in the script, I kind of break it up into bite-size parts. And then it's a matter of just kind of getting a good flow about it, so you don't focus too much on a specific thing that doesn't need focus on, and you don't skip over too much that might need more explanation than other things. And finding that kind of balance is probably one of the more difficult things, I think, because it's very easy to over-explain things, and it's very easy to under-explain things. So finding the good balance between, okay, this is enough, or this is too much, or whatever, that's kind of where I've tried to improve as much as possible. And I feel like I've found a pretty good balance at this point, where I don't drag on too much and I don't skip over too much. I feel like it's going pretty well. And once I have that, I essentially record all the voice lines because I have everything ready anyway in the script. And once that is recorded, I record the video. So I just read from my script essentially and follow my own script to create this setup from scratch. Yeah, essentially. I don't listen to myself. I just read the script. But yeah, the script comes first, and then everything else. Because the script will always be, the most correct version of the setup. Because when I write a script, I go through it very in detail and make sure that everything is as it is. So that makes it very easy to then record the video also, because I have everything in very nice bite-sized parts in my script, and I can just follow along. And it's a very quick process. I can record it in like a day or so. The hard part is creating the first setup that inspires the video, because that's usually, well, I wouldn't say random, but it's kind of, when it happens, it happens, It can take a day or it can take a week. And then writing a script takes about maybe a day at the most. And then it's just a matter of recording everything, which takes maybe an hour. And then editing takes everything from 4 hours to a day or so. I have a kind of, I've gotten into the groove at this point, so it's very streamlined for me. I'm sure I could improve on a lot of places, but this works for me. So if I'm not experimenting too much with style in the video or something like that, then it flows really well, I think. Hmm. I wouldn't say I have like a hardcore community or anything like that. I feel like I have my Discord channel or my Discord server, which I feel is a pretty nice place. We're not doing much on it at the moment because I don't have time. Unfortunately, I would love to do more on my server for sure. Like the dream would be to have like weekly challenges and whatnot, but there's just no time, and I feel kind of bad about it because I want to focus more on it and kind of build it up a bit more. But you gotta prioritize at some point. You can't work 24/7. But overall, I think it's a pretty nice community and a lot of good people. Some creators are there to hang out and talk, like you and Yo is in my channel, and who else? Some other. But yeah, I feel like it's pretty nice. Good community. I haven't seen anything bad in it, which is a huge plus. But yeah, overall, it's a shame that I can't focus more on it because I would like to. But it's a matter of time, and that's it. For sure. I have not, actually. I'm still stuck on 3.4 because it's what I'm using in my daily work. And I also have a habit of not checking out the latest builds until they're in the long-term support, or at least in the stable version. Mainly also because of YouTube, because I've had it happen for some videos where I release a video and the next day it completely breaks because there was an update to that specific version. My first video is a good example. I showed a 3.0 alpha version of the setup. The original video is about 2.93. So I said I'll include like the 3.0 alpha version as well, because why not? And then like the day after, it didn't work anymore. So I made it like a rule for myself to not focus on the long alpha versions or the beta versions. Just focus on the long-term support version, the stable version, and leave it at that, essentially. Yeah, because for me personally, whenever I see a tutorial where they say, hey, use this version, or don't use this version, or whatever, and you follow along to maybe the middle part, and then it stops working because the version is wrong, that can be annoying. But imagine how annoying it is when I specify in both the thumbnail and the title that this is the version I'm using. But since then, that version, because it was an alpha version, has been updated to a different alpha version. And the previous version doesn't exist anymore because that was just a daily build that they haven't archived. That would be frustrating. So to avoid that, I don't want any of my viewers to feel frustrated when they're watching my videos. I want them to feel like whatever problems they encounter, it's something that they can solve because the solution is there, you know. It's not something that is out of their control. Yeah, almost. Yeah, there was one period it was almost all the time. Even in the stable versions, there was one video I did for 3.1, I would say, where they changed how the curves worked, or the conversion to Bezier curves, how that worked, which completely broke a very important step in the video, which was a shame. Luckily, commenters were fast and said, this is how you do it in another way, so I didn't have to change anything. But it was kind of like, okay, this is kind of frustrating for me because I spent all this time working on this video and something out of my hands just completely broke it. So that's why I'm using the long-term support versions and nothing else, essentially. But it's not something you encounter often, but if you encounter it once when you spent like a week making a video and then, oh, this doesn't work anymore, that's a shame. Then you kind of have to make that rule for yourself that you need to change this to not affect you anymore and kind of work around it. And the workaround was to just use the long-term support. Yes, that's a good way of putting it. Oh, right. Yes, that one was pretty fun. That kind of blew up on Twitter for some reason. Not sure why. I guess people really like dripping faucets. Yeah, ASMR for your eyes, right? But yeah, that was really fun. A fun project. The setup is way too complex, way more complex than it should be at this point. But it was more of a, can I make this work, you know, with the tools I have? And it turned out pretty well, I think. It's fully procedural. Yeah, it just looks kind of nice, I think. Right. Sure. The big pivot is the type of content I would like to make for my channel. Not necessarily this channel, but some channel. I'm not going to stop doing tutorials altogether, but the focus will not be tutorials anymore at this point. They will still be made, of course, if I stumble upon something in my other work where, okay, this is an interesting thing to make a tutorial on that I haven't seen before, then I will make a tutorial on it. But there's no pressure from my side anymore to think about things to make, or this could work as a tutorial, you know. If I find something I think is cool, then yes. But no more kind of trying to push into finding things to make videos on. What I would like to do instead, because it's not something I have had a opportunity to do in a year and a half, is to actually create art that I want to make, which I didn't mind at first because I really enjoy making tutorials. It's really fun, but it does limit your creative process a lot when you have to work within the confines of it essentially, and that kind of spawned from working at the studio, the SPA studios in Madrid, and working on an actual film, which kind of sparked this, ignited this spark in me again in making movies, which I've always wanted to do, but I never had the tools to make it until now. So that's also why tutorials on my channel will kind of slow down, because I need to manage my time. The client work I'm doing is full time, so anything else I do will be on my spare time. And at this point, if I'm going to do things on my spare time, I need to enjoy it fully, essentially. Not that I don't enjoy making tutorials, but I need this creative outlet at this point. So that's why I'm making this kind of pivot to more filmmaking techniques in 3D and stuff like that. I'm not exactly sure how it will be, or how it will work, or what it will look like, or even what the concept will be. But that will be an experiment in itself, I think. But that's kind of the plan.
That's exciting, getting into the storytelling, getting into the work.
Yeah, it's something I've always wanted to. Yeah, it's like I always wanted to do it, but I haven't had either the time or the tools. And now I have a little bit of both, so I feel like now is the time to get on with it, essentially.
Okay, so going back into time management and energy management with this type of work, and working on the strategy to do that, what would be your strategy to help you manage your time to do this new type of pathway?
Yeah, I wish I knew. No, I'm a bit of a workaholic, so I do like to work. So time and energy is not really a problem for me. I work my hours for my daily work, my clients or my client. And then whatever time I have, if I feel like working, I kind of work. If I don't feel like working, I don't. But usually an hour here or there is enough during the week. And then usually I spend quite a bit of time in the weekends to actually just sit down and create stuff at this point, which I very much enjoy, because it's a very nice hobby, I think. And if you can enjoy what you're doing, and if it's also related to something to your future, or like some future plans, then it's just even better, because it doesn't really feel like work when you're actually having fun doing it. And when you can let your creative freedom just be loose and free, then it's even more fun. I haven't really had any good time management when I've been doing YouTube anyway. When I started my YouTube channel, I was studying full time, and I was also working nearly full time. So even then, it was just something I did like for fun when I wasn't working or studying. Then thanks to the YouTube channel, I could go down in hours on my work, so I had more time to do YouTube, which was fun. But yeah, I'm kind of a workaholic, so I'm not the one to ask for healthy time management when it comes to work. I just kind of, when I'm bored, I work. When I don't have anything else to do, I work. And that's kind of how it is.
I guess the way you handle your time management is you handle your motivation and your enjoyment to get the job done.
That's a pretty good way of putting it. Yeah, I would say so. By enjoying what I do, I don't have to manage much.
That's good. So how do you know when you're doing your experimentation with the videos, or when you're working on your new concept with an idea, how do you understand what motivates you and what doesn't?
Well, with the YouTube stuff, the tutorial stuff, I wouldn't say that there's one specific thing that motivates me. It's more of a, I like doing it, and that's enough for me. I've always been of the opinion that as long as I enjoy doing something, I will do it. The millisecond I stop enjoying it, I will stop. I've done this before. I had a pretty big separate community for a completely different thing, which was pretty large. And I said, I like doing this, so I'm going to do it. Then one day I woke up and I said, this is boring. And then I just stopped and just abandoned ship. Not to say that I would do this at this point with this, because this is a much bigger thing. But as long as I have fun, or at least enjoy what I'm doing, then I will just keep doing it, because then it's not really work for me. It's more of a hobby.
It feeds into itself.
Now, yeah, something like that. It would be different if it was my my main source of income or something. But at this point where I'm at, it's still mostly a hobby. And if I don't have fun doing a hobby, then it's not a hobby.
Not a good hobby. Yes, it's work.
Yeah.
Work you can't do because
work.
there's no time to do it.
Exactly. It kind of defeats the purpose.
That's right. Which leads me to one final question, which is kind of a one I wanted to bring up. I've noticed you've got your Gumroad. I've noticed you worked on your Patreon, and you've made your hobby quite a serious thing with a community that's growing, a regular schedule, and you enjoy it as well. Could this hobby be something you could depend on to finance your daily life? Would you want to do that?
I wouldn't mind it, though not in the way that it exists at the moment, which is also kind of why this pivot is an important step for me. Because just doing tutorials on, this is how you do this geometry nodes thing, while fun, isn't what I want to do full time. If this was my only thing, then I would like to expand what I'm doing into other areas, becoming more of a general, maybe not even a tutorial channel, but more of a, this is how you make a short film or something, these are some cool tips and tricks I found when I'm working on this. Here's how we do this art piece or whatever. Moving away from this very rigorous, this is a geometry node tutorial, let's make this geometry node setup, this is what I'm doing, let's stop there. Let's expand instead and create something that is more diverse, because right now it's way too hyper-focused, which was fun at the beginning and it helped me a lot to learn. But at some point, you need to broaden your horizon a bit.
There you go. Well, I'm looking forward to where you're going to take your skills and your art. And it's also kind of exciting to know that you worked with Spire Studios in Madrid.
Yeah, that was super fun. I wish I could do that again. But yeah, that's a story for another time.
Yes, that is a story for another time. I was a bit gutted that they lost their financing from Netflix.
Yeah, damn shame.
Oh well. Okay. So we've hit the half-hour mark, and I know my questions were a little bit dispersed. My Twitch stream has actually crashed for some reason.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, it's back again. Good, it's back again. And I had microphone problems as well earlier on my YouTube. So if you guys missed anything, just let me know. Hopefully we can talk about this later once you get your short film tutorials and content and art up and running. I'd love to talk to you again.
Absolutely.
So
I would love to.
I'll hold your word to it today, and we'll see where you go.
Yeah, also, of course.
I hope the management of time, I understand how this works as well, because I'm also working on a number of different projects, and I've done freelancing as well. And I would like I'd like to get more into teaching and doing these things, but lately my bandwidth is pretty much just this Q&A every Friday, sorry.
Right.
But people like you shows that it can be done when you enjoy your job. Hopefully you get there. So I would like to ask you, would you like to take a look at some art?
I would love to.
Okay. So the first art that we're going to take a look at today is done by, drum roll please, everybody who has submitted to the finished art in the B4 Artist community is practically going to be featured. So the first one we have today is Mr. Crusader. So I've talked with Mr. Crusader, and over the past few episodes we've been taking a closer look at all of his pieces, and he has been teasing us with a universe and a world, and he is willing to answer some questions. So hopefully next week we will be able to read up and go through some questions about his universe. So, Khamurai, I've wanted to ask you, when you see these images, what kind of world or story do you see?
Well, I'm seeing the back rooms, so I kind of know what it is.
Okay.
I'm assuming that this is renditions of the different backrooms levels. I see at least one level that I recognize, the one in the middle, the yellow one.
Yes.
I'm not sure about the other ones. I assume there are different levels of the backrooms. They have this kind of liminal space feeling to them, which is essential to the backrooms. Yeah, it looks really cool. I really like the one above the backrooms.
This one.
That one, yeah, with the pillars.
It is fascinating. So he's kind of doing a tribute to the game. It's a game, correct?
I know there is a game about it, yeah, but the lore about the backrooms is like this vast collaborative writing project, almost like the SCP Foundation, but not as detailed, I think. But it's really fascinating.
I wonder where he's taking it. Okay, we'll get some more answers about this next week, hopefully. So concerning creative, constructive criticism, what do you think he could work on to help improve these shots? I know his goal has been to get this kind of a camcorder feel, animation vibe, post-processing, bloom, and things like this. How do you think he could focus on improving that cam-held look?
One thing I would do as the first thing, which I almost always do in my own renders, ironically enough, even if I don't need it, is adding this chromatic aberration to the edges. That really helps selling this kind of distorted old camera look. I would also desaturate it quite a bit and maybe even bleed out the highlights even more, because it looks like the bloom is like the standard level. You can bring it up quite a bit in a compositor, because I think if you want to have this like really found footage style, I assume it is, it needs to look more deteriorated than it is at this point, because they're all looking really, really clean. And there's not much bleed in the edges or anything, and there's not much distortions. I see there's a bit of a fisheye distortion on the walls, which is good. But chromatic aberration and cranking up the bloom and desaturating the pictures some more, I think, could help.
Yes, that's right.
If that's the look you're going for, then I would suggest those things.
Good tips. All right, so Mr. Crusader.
I'm a big fan. Just to point in here, I'm a big fan of chromatic aberration. I use it all the time, even when I don't need it.
Good.
So.
Which actually is a good segue to the next artist, Andromeda, here, who's connected in the voice chat. Andromeda talked live a little bit last week, near the end of the last episode. No, second to last episode? Yes, second to last. And recently she has been working on
yes,
an episode called A Dream Journal, which is a bit like a podcast, an audio book with animated illustrations.
And I think the particles, I might have seen his tutorial, but I didn't realize it until today. I was like, wait, is this the same guy? So
most likely.
the particles that you see there are from your tutorial. So thanks.
Nice.
I use them for everything, and it looks.
Yeah, they have very many use cases for sure.
Yeah, I use them in
I use them all the
scene.
time.
So
Yeah, it looks great.
thanks.
Yeah, so you have a number
Yeah,
of shots.
I'm digging the distortion and the chromatic aberration. That's I'm a big fan.
The fisheye lens, the chromatic aberration, the dreamy aspect, the particles floating around, and there's a lot of shots. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Is this like a
15
one?
shots.
Is this all one animation, or is it
Yes.
many different?
So I'm going to link the video into the chat so you can watch for later, because it is about 9
nice.
minutes long. But in this case, it's like 2 dreams. So this is the 10th episode of the Dream Journal.
Yeah, when the thumbnail is black, is 1 dream. When the thumbnail is gray or white, it's 2 or 3 dreams.
Oh, I didn't realize that pattern. That's good to know.
Yeah, it's like a code I made for myself, so I can remember to do it.
That's good to know. So you listen on into the episode and you hear the dream and you look at the animated image, kind of like a storybook. And
I'm missing a few scenes that I didn't quite know how to do, like a morphing of a human into an elephant. I didn't know how to do it, so I was like, this is gonna take too much time. So I was like, I'm gonna omit that part. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds kind of tricky. I've seen one way to do it, but I'm not sure if it would help. I think Bad Normals made a video on something like that just recently.
On that.
Yeah, I saw a few, but I was like, this is gonna take me a long time, and I'm, I was like, nah.
So I recommend you check it out.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah, the Bad Normals tutorial, I was just starting to watch that one earlier before this. So it's kind of a good moment to take a deeper look into it. Alright, so Khamurai, concerning this content and these images, this is quite a feat. It took you about 2-3 weeks to do this, correct?
I don't know. It took me some time because it's it's a lot, and I made everything. I made all the props and everything because I like modeling. I like creating my worlds. I like it. I know it's like stupid. I should be looking for models. I was talking about this with Drace the other day. But I really, really like modeling stuff and making my worlds because it feels good,
Yeah. I would say 2 weeks is really fast for all those assets, which is impressive. Do you work on this full time or just like in your spare time?
It's spare time, yeah.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
Yeah, some of these assets are very good. My favorite scene is specifically the ship scene with the shadow that goes over the corner here. I thought that was
good
a very
mood.
cool shot. And another scene, the guy handing the parcel. I thought that was very cool too.
It's interesting to see such a wide variety of styles also, because none of them are similar in any way almost.
No, because they're different parts of the dream, so they change from day to night or night to day or like sunset. They change. So I try to convey what I see in the dream.
Yeah, very nice.
I quite like that. All right.
Yeah, as I said, I'm a big fan of the chromatic aberration and the lens distortion, so thumbs up. I'm digging it.
Excellent. So when it comes to the content and the storytelling with the images, how would you think you could, what would be your advice, Khamurai?
Kind of hard to say, because these are meant to be animated, right? They're animated in the video, yeah. It's kind of different when you have an animation versus a still picture. Because when you have just a still picture, you really need to have a very specific way of conveying either motion or intent. When you have an animation, you can be a little bit more loose about it. And a still frame from an animation rarely translates exactly what you want to try to convey anyway. So I think you need to watch at the actual animations to get a good feel for it.
I guess they're a lot like living still, almost. Which is an interesting format, which I find has a huge potential.
Oh, yeah.
And it is a good effort. Oh, this one here with the...
Oh, that one's creepy.
Yeah, because there's a carnivorous plant that eats one of the pirates. Because some pirates get into the ship, and then there's this plant that starts eating them.
And that's also a very good example of animation versus still image, because even if you get you get what's happening in the still image, but you don't really get the full context. Because in animation, the person is alive at the start. It looks like, while in the image, you don't really know what's going on fully.
That's right. So it's kind of like the animation adds to a lot more context to what's happening.
Yeah.
Jay, recommend.
But the backlighting on that one is really nice. I like that.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next piece that we have here is done by Muhammad Emin. So Muhammad Emin is here actually connected. I'm not sure if you can come to the voice or not, but you've been working on something slightly more of a design and architectural piece of a showcase for a company called Binzi. So this piece here, before I move on and show you the rest, what do you think this is as a piece of furniture?
Well, I assume it's like a hallway drawer or something to store maybe... I'm not sure what you would store in the hallway. I see the slippers, so maybe it's in the bedroom.
You're pretty close. I'm kind of trying to mention that you should be showing 3D work, not photographs, because it is a good render.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, so this piece here, we've had a look at some of his work earlier in the past, and some of them have been about this shoe shelf.
So I was almost right.
You're almost right about the slippers. So
very cool. So this is an actual product that they've designed with or this is meant to represent an actual product?
I think so. I will just ask Muhammad right now. I write a little slow. But I think so. He earlier in a couple episodes back, maybe 4 episodes possibly, he showed a video about one of these products and how you build it, with the screws, with the shelves, a bit like an IKEA piece almost. And he's writing his answer. The moment of truth time. Yes, it is designed and it is sold, and it is a physical product that he has been illustrating. I consider
very
it
cool.
Very believable. The renders are very clean, very nice, and I like the assortment of shoes. And it is a product to be sold. The good work.
Yeah, very nice. I really like the lighting. It fits well with the dark walls and the dark floor. Yeah, you get a good look of how it works and how it would look in real life, in your own wall, in your own room. Lots of details, yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, this is something that I need to have in my house at the moment. Got shoes floating everywhere.
I've never seen something like this. It's super cool. Such a cool idea to have like I thought it was like drawers that you like pulled out. But this is much cooler. Just flipping over and get the shoes you want.
That's right.
Very nice.
So this is done by Muhammad Emin. Thanks for showing us these updates.
Very nice work.
So when it comes to realism and renders, I've noticed in some of your renders, what are the key targets other than chromatic aberration on the lenses and things like this? What other tips do you have to help achieve realism?
A good HDRI is a must almost if you want to do interior shots at least. You can get away with some less realistic lights if you're outside, like with a sun lamp or something. But if you're inside, then HRI is very important. I would also say that using your camera right, because it's not always about just having good lights or good composition. Like the way your camera is set up and the settings for the camera also affects a lot what the actual render will be. Because the default 50 millimeter length of the focal length of the camera in Blender isn't something that is usually used when you're photographing things. It's usually around like 35, or if you're doing like inside shots, maybe you want even more. But yeah, finding a good camera setting for the subject that you're trying to depict realistically is also very important. And of course, depth of field. If you're doing anything with like a difference in depth, then depth of field will definitely add some realism to it.
That is a good tip. And when it comes to rendering, do you think also sensor size and other things like that are important, or tilt shift when it comes to architecture?
I haven't experimented much with those, to be honest, but I think if you look at pictures of actual architecture and try to mimic the kind of the camera look in those, is a good exercise. Because there are a lot of like small details and imperfections and minor settings that you don't really pay attention to, but which adds a lot to the final product.
That's good.
So even something like looking up like specific camera settings for a specific camera and trying to emulate that in Blender with the Blender camera is also a good exercise to kind of get a feel for how different cameras produce different pictures.
So Osama has asked a question about cameras, and his question is, what are your thoughts on a 90-degree camera rule when it comes to different shots?
In terms of when you're photographing a subject, only photographing at 90 degrees difference.
Is this necessary? Can you break this rule? Is it a guideline, or is it imperative?
I actually haven't heard anything about the 90-degree rule. 45-degree rule is pretty good if you want to make product shots. Because usually you want what's called like a 3/4 shot, which is kind of angle at a 45-degree angle or something.
Similar to this one here.
Similar to those, yeah. Because photographing us from the front and from the side isn't really helpful to understanding how it would actually look, because you very rarely do look at the furniture straight on or straight from the side. It's usually at an angle in the room. And you see that often in like, if you watch like IKEA's website or something and watch because they do these amazing, like nothing in the IKEA website is real. It's all renders, which is mind-blowing. But yeah, they really like to explore different angles to kind of bring forth the best qualities of their furniture. And there are some shots that are straight on, but they're kind of rare, and it depends on how the room that they've made is set up. So I wouldn't say that there's a rule that says you need to use specific angles. It really depends on what the shot looks like and what the subject looks like, and even things like, you know, the focal length of your camera can affect the camera position, because not every angle works for every focal length and so on.
That's right.
It's really a matter about finding good angles. That's kind of why if you're watching like a photo shoot of a model or something, the cameraman often swivels around all over the place to find good angles, because sometimes you find the best angle in a place you didn't expect. So experimenting with it is definitely better than trying to adhere to a very strict rule of like 90 degrees or something. That would be my take on it.
And also answer your second question. Osama is asking specifically for architecture and furniture shots, where the camera's exportation is set to about 90 degrees. When it came to this example, Hamid shared some of his animated cameras. So he set a camera, set a keyframe, set another camera, set another keyframe to quickly get different shots, and just rendered out the animated sequence, which I think is very smart.
Yes, so, for sure.
But the advice that Khamurai Khamurai said about the cameras and finding the complementary angle based on the message of the object that you want to showcase or the architecture you want to share. You got to think about the objective, Osama. Once you have your objective,
I would also. Sorry.
Carry on.
I was wanted to say that I would also add that if your question is completely just regarding the X angle of the camera. I wouldn't call that a rule either. I mean, if you're doing something like these 3 shots that you have here, then yes, definitely keep the X angle the same all the way through. That's the best way to kind of get a good feel for how it looks in 3D space. So if you're doing something like this, then you should keep like the height of the camera and the what would you call it, like the look angle of the camera, like keeping it like parallel to the floor, like you have here, would definitely be the way to go. But there are times where you might want to bring the camera down, and then you would need to angle the camera upwards, for example. Or if you want to get a higher shot, you would angle it downwards. But keeping it at the same level, if you're doing shots like this, is a very good idea, for sure.
That's right. So I hope that answers your question, Osama. So let's move on. So another piece that we have is done by Dynamic CG.
I recognize this one. It's a ducky piece.
That's right. So Dynamic CG has been learning 3D, and he started one of his first pieces from a while back. So I guess since you recognize this tutorial, I guess you could say, all right, so where could he push it? What should be his next step?
Ooh, that's a really good question. In this case, I would definitely add some more depth of field to it. And this is kind of a good scene to have as a practice scene, because you have this angle of the camera, right? And this distance of the camera from the subjects. And you have kind of the focal point on the sphere, but it's kind of offset, which is an artistic decision made by Ducky. What I would do is I would take this scene, I would try out all kinds of different camera settings, like increase the focal length to 200 or something, and try to find a good angle to put the camera where it still looks interesting, or bring it down to like 15 or 25, which will make the scene look much larger and much deeper, and kind of find good angles to put it, because maybe you want to put the camera right behind the person or something, or maybe you want to see it from the sphere's point of view or whatever. But yeah, it's a good scene to practice on, because there are so many different compositions you can make from these 2, like the floor and the ceiling, and the 2 subject matters. Because depending on where you put the camera, the story behind it completely changes. So my tip would be to move the camera around and try to find cool shots with this scene.
Working on the story.
Yeah.
Nice.
I
like your know-how about the cinematography. It seems like you're ready to go on to that new journey with the cinematography.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll see. But yeah, it's all about trying to find a way to tell a story with shots like this. And the scene itself is very good for that. So yeah, try to just move around the camera to see if you can find some cool shots.
Good. So talking of shots, we have a piece by Lore Hal. I'm going to share the link inside of Discord. Lore Hal from last week, he teased his production, and he was releasing this video this week, and it's finally released on Instagram. So I don't have sound at the moment, but I do recommend you watch it with sound. Okay, what's happened? My keyboard's got sticky keys for some reason. My new computer hasn't arrived yet, so I'm still on my 1060. Okay, good. The link finally sent. So this is a piece for a piece of work, Omni, which is a mobile game, which players collect digital clothing items and put them on their avatars. So he has been working on this concept of the clothes and the fashion and the idea of the lights and the music. Quite a cool, fun, sharp piece. And he's got a pretty much a limited vertical landscape of Instagram, and the camera's front on almost symmetrical. So when it comes to making reels or videos for Instagram, I noticed that on your networks you also have a TikTok. How do you produce content for vertical aspects ratios?
I'm not the person to ask, to be honest. I haven't made, I think, anything specific for TikTok. I do think about doing things for like Instagram. The keyboard animation, for example, is one of those things where I said, okay, I want to post this on Instagram, so I'm gonna make it 1080 by 1920. And also, it just looks better sometimes. Some subject matter just looks better in what's it called, portrait mode. But it's also an interesting thing to experiment with different aspect ratios, because it can guide you in directions you haven't tried before. Because limitation is often a good teacher when you want to learn something new. And doing something like this, where you only have the portrait mode to work with and trying to tell a story with that, is it's not the usual medium you would tell a story with. It's not the usual cinema aspect ratio or the TV aspect ratio or whatever, or even the computer aspect ratio. So trying to tell a story within this narrow box is it's a different workflow for sure, or a different way of thinking.
It's also a good thought exercise and a cinematography exercise to do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've seen videos or movies where aspect ratios has been used to great effect to actually tell a story within a story, which is pretty cool when you notice it. So yeah, I mean, this is looking really good. I really like the shots in this one, like especially the one in black and white, the close up of the model with this film grain. I can't really explain it. It just looks really cool. Maybe because it's so different from everything else.
I wish I could pause the Instagram videos.
That one.
Yeah. Where it's slightly off center, it kind of breaks up and comes up close.
Yeah, it feels almost like this is like guerrilla footage or something. Like someone took this without permission at like a fashion show or something, like paparazzi almost.
Which I do like. And the storytelling as well. I noticed this like starts off with the open scene in the town and goes into like the spheres and then shows the full characters and goes closer and closer to that close up. Loops out. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it feels almost like this is like stumbling upon like an underground business or something. You know, you're in the back alleys of some big city and you stumble into this underground network of fashion almost.
All right. So Lorhal, if you're here and you're listening to this later, I just wanted to say good work. I'm really happy to have seen the final release, especially from the teaser that you shared last week. So thanks for that.
Yeah, it looks really cool. And I see a lot of backlighting, and it's kind of emulating like the paparazzi in a lot of the shots.
That's right.
So yeah, super cool.
Right, so now we have another piece by Slink. So Slink, this is I think you're here. Oh, he was here in the voice chat earlier. Oh,
I am.
You are. So this is more of a technical piece, but still looks really good. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I got like bored sometimes, and I installed like an add-on for like gems and like jewelry modeling. So I just like made a diamond, put it on the ground, and like this coral, I don't know the name of the box.
The Cornell box,
like,
yeah, I think.
Yeah, Cornell box. And it's like, and then I just said, do the thing, computer. And like 2 hours later, this came out and looks incredible.
It does look very good. It's very rare that I work with good causticks. So Osama here in the chat has asked if this is done with LuxCore. I think
Indeed, it is.
I think he nailed it. Could this be done in Cycles, or is this beyond its abilities at the moment?
I do not believe. Well, on a technical level, Cycles could replicate caustics, but I don't think with the current tech it could have done. No.
Yeah, I
It's like
think.
basically you
sorry,
would
go on.
wait for infinity until it reaches this.
It's quite a technical feat. So you're about to say something, Khamurai?
Yeah, I was about to say that they did add caustics in cycles recently, but it's nowhere near this advanced yet. I don't think.
It isn't.
In this case, it might be good to just get the caustics pass from LuxCore and then render everything else in whatever you need.
Maybe.
Now, Kinda Drunk has mentioned an idea that maybe you could fake caustics with colored shadow caustics, possibly. I think there are some products that do this. It's a good idea. But it won't look as
it
good.
looks fine, but like if you can see here, basically nothing there is in the shadow of the diamond. Just 0 caustics are in the shadow. They're just all over the place, so that also wouldn't work like this.
Okay.
Maybe for background glass or something.
Alright. Well, thanks, Link, for sharing this and the technique. You'll have to share some screen captures of your shader settings or the ray settings that you used in LuxCore to get something similar to this later on. Okay, so we just have 3 more little videos to do. Tribe Jordan is also new to the server, and he shared a piece of... let me just load it up. So he basically created a turntable of some clothes.
Very nice.
So this is a particular topic of reverse engineering, because I'm not entirely sure how to do clothes. And I wanted to ask you, when it comes to these things, I noticed that you use cloth for your tentacles, and you kind of created a cloth effect for your steam. Have you done modeling or clothes with the tool sets that you know?
I have not yet. One person I worked with on the SPA, however, is doing essentially procedural clothing with jump nodes. It's not this detailed yet, I think, but the initial results are really promising. Where you essentially you control all the holes of like a t-shirt, for example, with just one curve for each, like the neck and the bottom part or something. And then you generate the clothes within those bounds, which is super cool, but way above my understanding at this point, because he's worked on this for a long time. But nowhere near this complex, I don't think. I think if you want this level of detail and this kind of, the puckering of the seams and stuff like that, you probably need the cloth modifier still. I think it might be possible to simulate it, but with the nodes. But I think you would be shooting yourself in the foot by doing that. It would be much easier to just do it with cloth.
Right. And do you think the Blender cloth system is capable for doing this at the moment?
I think so. You would probably need to, tweak it a bit and make it a lot larger than real life size, because that's also an issue with the cloth and physics in Blender. It really doesn't like small things. You need to bring it up like 10 times the size to get good results. Not sure if cloth is as finicky as physics simulations, but usually when you bring it up to size, it usually works better. I think at least. But yeah, if you set your vertex weights well and you set the topology right when you add the cloth modifier, I think you could get something like this.
That's a good. Kind Drunk also mentioned as another good idea, if it's for still, you could use the cloth brush from sculpting tools, which may come in handy.
That is very true. That is indeed very true.
And then you could use simple armature deformations or others to do the rest. For performance reasons. So another little piece that we have updated is by White Rooster Productions. The White Rooster Productions has been making these title sequences, and this is the 3rd or 4th that we have seen here in the series. I'm not sure which one's the best yet. Let's see if I can dig up another. 1 second. Not last week. The week before, nope. No, I can't find his previous videos. I'd have to dig quite deeply. But here's another reverse engineering one that I like to see. Concerning these particles that are flying off the text, how do you think he did it?
Well, my best guess would be just a particle system with some force or something. But it might also be done with like you could do this with the jump node system in 3.5, the simulation nodes, which would probably be better than using actual physics because you can control it much easier. But I'm not sure actually. Based on the movements, it feels like there's like no gravity and you move a force field from left to right.
It does feel a little keyframed, yes.
Not sure that's how you did it, but yeah, it looks nice. I always like these kind of effects where you have particles falling off something. It looks really good.
Right.
Maybe I would mask the parts that haven't been particleized yet to kind of make it seem like it's being almost sanded off into this logo from black. Yeah. But yeah, I like the movements though. It looks really nice.
I guess that's my only critique as well. So I think there are some black particles, and black on the black makes some of the particles look like an alpha issue, pre-multiplied issue, possibly. But out of all of the titles that I've seen you do, White Rooster, if you're listening to this later, this one is probably the most legible, but the less flashy of the three that you've done or that I've seen. So I might have to ask you a couple of questions later in the side channels to see where you're going to take these logos or these introductions, and we'll see where it goes. Alright, and we have one last piece before I'm going to give you a quick update of my latest project, before we tie this up. And this is done by Toxic Tuber. And also I got a couple of messages for you, Andromeda, later that was talked by Killin here. He also likes to model his own things, even if it looks bad. It's therapeutic. I think it looks good there. Okay, so Toxic Tuber's piece is a YouTube video, an Instagram video. YouTube short video, similar to an Instagram video. So let me just load that up into Discord. And load it up here. Hopefully it loads correctly. Well, okay, I'll have to load it into Discord. So Toxic Tuber has been working with some kaleidoscopes. He showed us a piece earlier on, and he just created a short YouTube 420-degree circle. And it no longer can work in Discord because it has been blocked at my website. Okay. Fortunately, we're going to have to skip ahead with this one. We'll have to watch it later.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. So, another question concerning, that was asked in the server was concerning the LuxCore nodes. Osama says the video worked for him. Good. I'm in South America, so it must be an issue on my end. Okay, so my last piece is actually more of a personal, I would like your critique concerning one of my latest pieces. I'm going to give you a quick preview of the video without sound. And this is from the next episode that is coming. I'm just going to quickly load it up. This is part of an Android repair workshop. So if you have seen my work before, maybe you know about it, but this is now...
I have.
Oh, good. So this is now episode 5, song 6 of the album.
I need a new chair.
You need a new chair. And this song is called Uncle Kenrick's. And in this particular video, in the city, this is designed in the Trash Islands. Let's take a look at the animatic. There we go. Loading. So this is where we start to think about the cinematography. I would like to see it's only got 4 shots, very short and simple, but I have a doubt about the second shot. So this is the first shot, and then we have another shot from here. So I can't reveal the music yet because I want to release the video later, but this is the second shot. Third shot, nice and simple. And last shot. So it's short and sweet, simple little story. That's about it, really. So my second shot is, I know it's a very short story, there's not a lot to say, you would have to hear it to understand a bit more about what's going on. Oh, we also have one last piece as well after this. Hey, I'm kind of drunk found Rooster's other videos. So what do you think about the second shot? Does it complement the story, or do you think it needs better work?
Can I see it again?
Keep playing it.
Keep playing? Okay.
Yeah, let's see it again. I mean, I love this first shot. I love how it just reveals. You slowly come into it, and it draws you in until you actually find the character, and then just like immersing you into the shot. At this point, is amazing. I really like that. That movement in there. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
I feel maybe in this part, I feel it's busy. Like maybe more separation between, the character in the background. Would be my only critique of any of it. To be honest, I like this as well.
That's good tips. Hopefully when I get my new computer, it's going to be much easier to do re-renders of these without having to wait a few days of my computer processing power.
The struggle. But yeah, I agree. It's a good shot, the second shot, but I wouldn't say it's too busy, but there's not enough separation between what we should look at and what we should, or rather what we should focus on and what not to focus on. Because it's not immediately obvious what you should look at that point. I understand it's a overhead shot of where he's fishing, but I'm not exactly sure what we should be looking at it, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. It's unfortunate that I had to cut this shot here because I had a bit of a glitch with the water. The camera actually sinks into the water and you can see the cup sitting just in the water level, but that shot glitched out. I had to cut it out. So you mentioned also, Hood, that the shot where he's actually talking here is a bit too busy.
Yeah, maybe someone else put it better, but yeah, just the separation really. Maybe it's not busyness, maybe it's
contrast,
yeah, fog or something. There's an interaction between those two characters, so we'll know better. But
yeah, I think another thing as well. I think you're onto something because it was a last-minute decision to throw in the cameo of the key character of the album into this shot, but he's a key character, so he's taken a lot of attention. When he's not in the shot, it's a little bit more easy to read.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like anything, stuff that's really close to mind, I mean, it kind of just melts into that background for me.
You're right. Yeah. So maybe I can paint it out a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And the second shot, not understanding what it is, that's good advice as well, Khamurai.
I mean, I understand what it is, but I feel like it lacks a very distinct focal point to draw your attention to it.
In this case, I could change the shot and actually make it focus on a point, change the angle a bit better, and rotate around it, for example.
Yeah, I think like that angle you have that there in the sketch is really nice. Kind of like a bit more like a 60-degree angle or something, almost isometric.
Okay, so it might be worth doing another render. I'll have to talk to my client to see if we have time. But I need my machine. Okay. So, thanks again. This has been a very long session because we had a lot of art and a lot of things to talk about. And I'm actually really excited that you put yourself out there to talk about the pivot point of wanting to get into new content. I know it can be a little bit of a compromise telling your plans, and it can be a little bit of a trick in your brain to say, all right, I've talked about my plans, means I must have done them when you haven't actually done them yet. But
right,
you love what you do, and your tip about loving your work and keeping it clear that it's something that you need to enjoy and that you can do it even when you're tired or not, because you enjoy it, and sticking to the things that you enjoy and going through the trial and error and pushing through and finding that little bit of happiness and pleasure with the work that you do. And I'm sure that whatever wall you do hit, similar to the wall you hit when it came to the LTS versions of your tutorials, you will get there. So I'm very encouraged and happy to have talked with you, Khamurai, today. And I'm very happy to all the other artists who shared your work and the finished art and the Q&A and critique. Keep it coming, keep it growing, and I will see you guys next week, same time, same place, Friday. Have a good one.